Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Armando, I am so glad you're here with us today. I'm really glad. It was good to see you this morning, actually. I know you had a good vacation. And so
I did. I was on vacation. I'm glad to be back, Michael. It's wonderful to be back. I miss my Brighter Possibilities family.
I don't know if I believe you. I'm teasing you.
Of course I do.
I'm teasing you.
Of course I do.
We missed you too, and it was...
I don't know if I miss the pile of work that I have on my desk, but I do miss my family.
Obviously, you're very important, very needed, so we're glad you're here. And I really appreciate you doing this topic with me on this podcast. I think Janan would do great, and Ariana, and anyone that would interview me on it. But I know that this is something that you got to watch me kind of put together in a sense. I did it, being here, and you've been with me now, I don't know how many years. We've done this together as a teammate.
It's been a minute.
And it's awesome. And so you kind of were, in a sense, kind of part of the process. So I think it's awesome that you're interviewing me on it. So
I think about this, the nice thing about it is it's exciting to see you do this work, and it's exciting to see, again, we're talking about the Brighter Possibilities family, but seeing people in your family kind of level up and kind of move. Mm-hmm. And I think to cut to the chase, what we're talking about, listeners, is that our own Michael Flores has published a book. So, Michael, what is the name of your book?
One Question Away, 50 Therapeutic Questions to Change Everything.
So why that title? Why, as we've talked about this throughout the years, like you alluded to, but why this title? Why this book?
Well, the title's always the hardest part. I think when you're trying to write a book, you kind of want to know, who am I writing it to? Who's my audience in a sense. And so I think what inspired me was the fact that, in all the years I've done this, I've had questions that I've asked. I'm like, ooh, that was a good question. Like, I know it was a good, at least I felt it was a good question. and either it didn't land well or it was a miss. And then I've asked questions that were so simple. They weren't even therapeutically charged in any way, if that makes any sense. It wasn't like it's a therapy question, but yet it made the biggest impact on the shift that the person experienced in the therapeutic process. So in my opinion, I was like, you know what? I know that there are certain questions that I ask that land well with most people. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And so to me, it was, I want to take the 50 best questions I can think of. Now, I'll tell you how this started. It started with a conversation with a friend of mine that doesn't work here at Brighter Possibilities. And I said, you know what, man, I think I want to get a compilation of questions that I frequently ask that I know help generate solutions, movement. They create something different than the problem. And I know you've asked certain questions that do that, and I have. What if we did this joint venture? So we started jointly, and I don't know, we probably developed 10 or 15 questions total. I don't remember how many it was total. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. But we generated some together, and then it just kind of fizzled out. And so I remember sending him a message, and I said, hey, man, are you opposed to me just taking on the task, doing the book on myself? And because I want to see it through. Like, I've done a lot of projects and didn't finish them, and this is one I would definitely want to finish. And he said, no, man, I understand. I'm sorry. I've just been busy with other things. I said, awesome. And so I just took on the task myself, finished the book, and I sent him the screenshot of when the book was ready for purchase. And I said, here you go. Yeah, he was so excited. Mm-hmm. But what made me really get into the book was I've experienced people having a shift just because of one question. And so one question away, I think a lot of change and a lot of people, they think it's a big shift, and sometimes it's a millimeter shift. It's just like a shift in your mindset or a shift in how you think.
Just enough to kind of change, to turn you into looking something in a different direction or a different perspective.
That's correct. And I'm sure you've seen that too, Armando. And so to me, I always think you're one question away. And so this book is a compilation of the 50 therapeutic questions that were developed because a client brought something up and then it became routine for me to ask. But it's pretty much the 50 questions that I could think of that I know have facilitated change in families or movement, have created significance in some way.
So with that, Michael, talk about, or I'm curious, like, how is, like, well, you mentioned a little bit about how powerful a great question is.
Yeah.
But what is the difference between trying to ask a question to understand versus a question to prove a point, right? Like you talk a lot about like listening or staying curious.
Yeah.
How do you kind of put that in a way to kind of guide people or create questions to do that, if I'm making sense? So it's not a great question because it's not clear necessarily.
I think when I'm proving a point, I'm not asking, I'm usually telling. So if I'm asking a question, sometimes my curiosity may be what you just said doesn't match with what I feel like I'm seeing or sensing or whatever else. And so I'm asking a question so that you can prove your point to me.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. I almost want to be like, I want to make sure I'm not missing something here. What's the old saying? I flirt with the assumption I don't marry it, you know? And that came from Dr. Rosgita, but I remember, you marry your assumptions and you're stuck. So a good question is a flirt, And so to me, I'm not really proving to them. Sometimes I'm giving them permission to prove it to me by the question I'm asking.
How do you help people stay curious, especially if we're asking questions and you walk in with an assumption, or you're looking for confirmation bias, or you're looking for something to fill in? How do you stay curious? I mean, I feel like you're asking a lot for people to stay curious. Well, how do you do that, or how do you prime the pump, I guess, in order to
for them or for myself?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it. You were going to do that to me. For myself, I just assume I could be wrong in everything. I may not know. I only know what I think I know. And by staying in a state of that, it causes me to continue to question.
So humility is what you're saying.
In a sense, yeah, you go down to go up in a sense, So, he who humbles himself is exalted, and he who exalts himself is humbled. And that's straight out of the Bible. And it's Jesus.
It's warm in here.
It is warm. You're something else, Armando. The sun is shining bright, isn't it?
It is. It is that.
Well, no, I would just say that to encourage another person to stay curious, what I would say is you have to assume there's two sides, right? So I'll give two quotes here. The only sure barrier to truth is the presumption that you already have it. Okay, that's one. The other one that I've been saying more frequently is, if you ask the grass, the zebra is the monster and the lion is the protector. And so you have to remember there's perspective and there's perception, and those two things aren't the same.
So the combination of having that humility,
correct,
but also being open-minded and understanding that there are different perspectives, right? That the lion is protecting the grass.
Correct. And so sometimes who am I talking to? Am I talking to the lion, the zebra, or the grass? Sometimes I got to know which one I'm talking to.
Who are you talking to? Yeah.
And so I have to figure that out first. And then once I know who I'm talking to, I then understand their perspective. You're the grass. Of course, the lion's makes sense, the protector. I'm talking to the zebra. I can see how I know who the villain is for them.
Right.
And so depending on who you talk to. And so that's me to them going, if you stay in that state, and remember, the only sure barrier to truth is a presumption you already have it. And sometimes you think you're the zebra, or you think they're the lion, but they may feel like they're the grass, So understanding that their own experiences, their own things that they haven't overcome or unaccomplished are the things that either hold them back or also cause them to behave in certain ways that you call villainizing.
So what happens when in the relationships, or when people are able to have that conversation, when the grass, the lion, and the zebra are all having that conversation based on a question? How powerful is that? What have you seen happen?
Yeah, when I've asked a really good question, a good therapeutic question, which I have tons of them in here, then what ends up happening is people start gaining perspective instead of just perception. Perception is the way I see it. Perspective is the way you see it. And so when I'm able to have a conversation with a family like that, and I ask a question that lands, typically the way I know it landed is because all of a sudden perspective is now being given. There's usually alignment, not necessarily the mode of transportation and how we get there, but we align on what we hope for. Like we both want our kids to thrive, right? We both want our kids to pass in school. We both want and you start hearing them talking about where they align more than just where they disagree. The cool thing is if you ask good questions, you'll change their ear. I had to change mine. I don't listen anymore for what I disagree with people. I'm actually trying to listen for where I align, in a sense, not like I agree with them, but where I can see their point of view. Like, oh, I get that. I can see why you would, or I can see why you would feel that way. And that makes sense now. Okay. And when I can pull a conversation apart and use my 5 sense language, it seems like this, or it looks like that, that allows me to help a family start doing it the way I do it. And so now they become seekers of perception or seekers of a perspective rather than seekers of perception.
So listening to you, I'm struck by, yes, we do a lot of family work, but also doing individual work. I think it's also important for our listeners to understand that these questions can be utilized internally also, right? To kind of create our own sense of change. But I mean, that's part of therapy, right? Like if it's not family, but it is individual, like that's part of it. Like being able to ask ourselves those questions and say, what is it that I really think, or what are the other perspectives? So it is a continuation of change across not just all systems, right? Like not just the family system, but the individual system, couples, all that stuff.
I don't remember in the final edit if I took this line out of the book. I have to go back and look at the, where I wrote it, but I wrote that if you're using these questions for yourself, you change the you to I. So it is about you. And yes, these questions you can ask of yourself, which I would encourage people to do anyway. Self-reflection, self-auditing it should always be step one. I mean, just a second ago, Armando, when I was talking, you were like, how do you do that? Well, I got to remember, I could be wrong. Right. So that's a self-audit.
Right.
By me self-auditing, it makes me more of a curious observer, which means my questions are going to land way better because I'm already auditing myself. I don't need you to audit me. I'm doing it. And I'm not auditing me to figure out where I'm wrong. I'm auditing me so I can make sure things land.
Right.
So I can ask you the good question. I can ask you the one that's going to help facilitate the thing that's going to help things move in the right direction. So absolutely.
So talking about questions and kind of like having those dialogues and specifically having hard conversations, right? We get these hard conversations in here. You do couples, we do family, we do all of it. And there are hard conversations. Like why do people like leave conversations feeling unheard? Like even if they're both communicating, they're both talking, how is that happening? If we're talking and we're putting our perspective, our point of view out there, how does that still occur?
Which part specifically are you asking?
I guess the feeling of unheard, like where is that breakdown, right? Like how does that conversation break down where, well, you think it's blue and I'm like, no, it's baby blue. Where's there's still a breakdown of there.
Yeah. Tell me about your blue.
Yeah. Why do you think they still, like people still feel unheard?
I think the most important thing for all human beings is they want to be seen and validated. I mean, even children want to be seen. I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and she said her 5-year-old, she's the youngest of her siblings, and she'll just walk around and hit people. And she goes, I don't know why she just hits. And I said, well, how do y'all respond to it? And she says, well, being curious, right? I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I haven't done any of that. I've literally done none of that yet. And so what I said is, how do y'all respond to it? And she says, well, we'll typically, don't do that, or that's rude, or why would you? And I said, okay. And I said, I wonder if, right, and I played with it, what difference would it make for her if you guys were to give her just a little bit more attention versus her having to seek it out through a negative behavior? Mm-hmm. Is it possible, stay curious, right? Is it possible that she's trying to get your attention in the only way that she knows how because she doesn't want to be forgotten? Is she your kid that usually feels lost or left out?
Yeah.
And mom goes, yeah, she is. I said, cool. So when she hits her sister, what happens? Well, and the client said it, she's reminded, right? She's letting us know she's there.
Right.
I said, how can we do that in a way that's more productive?
So
that's how I did that.
So I guess to answer the question, listening to you, it's like you feel unheard, like when people are kind of stuck, well, they're holding on to their assumptions. They're holding on.
Correct.
Like, I'm telling you what it is, but I'm clinging on to this like a life vest, right? Like, like I need this to be true so much. So yeah, you're telling me you're giving me the facts, but you're not necessarily thinking about how that experience impacted the other person, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'm looking at it more holistically.
Right.
Overall, like how was it for everyone, not just yourself? And what, I mean, one of the questions I ask someone is, so let's say that they disagree with me on something. I give a therapeutic impression, say, it seems like this is what's happening. And they say, no, I'm wrong. And I what I'll say is, I could be. But if I'm not, what would that suggest?
Mm-hmm. I actually really like to be told when I get it wrong.
I don't mind it either.
I actually really like, if I'm like, hey, this is the sense I get. Am I off base or am I close? And they're like, no, you're completely off base. And when I tell you, I lean in and I'm like,
oh yeah,
what am I missing?
Well, doesn't it feel like you get a more genuine conversation?
It does.
When you're not afraid to say, what did I miss? Right? Or where am I missing the mark here? That allows them to now have a conversation with you about that piece. I think that a lot of times, I'll give you an example. Somebody came in and says, hey, Michael, how do you build trust? I said, with who? And they said, with someone who you had trust, they broke it. And, we have that formula, consistency plus particularly over time, which absolutely will help, in my opinion, sustain trust. I think to build trust, you have to do a self-audit, which you have to acknowledge, like, hey, I probably messed this up. You want to build trust with someone, you got to be willing to call yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's the superpower? Vulnerability, right? I think Brene Brown talks about that. Courage, vulnerability is courage. It doesn't look like it.
Oh, it's incredibly.
Incredibly courageous.
Yeah, you have to be incredibly courageous to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary.
It is. And I think what I said to someone is, if someone takes your vulnerability and uses it against you in some way, then what does it say about them?
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if it really says anything about you. I wonder what it says about
It's about them. There.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it's almost like, I think the questions that people ask, if they stay in a curious state, I could be wrong, I may have missed it, I think you allow possibilities to show up. That's what you're doing, is you're opening all the potentials that could exist, which could be better than what you even thought of yourself.
I think too, if having this conversation with you, if people are coming to these conversations and you're asking the questions and they're responding in good faith, and even if you get it wrong,
Mm-hmm.
I think what it does is it causes them to self-reflect a little bit more and be like, okay, they're not understanding me. Let me go deeper to explain what I'm saying in a different way. So it also arms them with a better understanding of what their perspective is what I have found. Have you found something similar? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, it does. And I have found that to be the case. A lot of it, I think, is realizing your approach. I think everyone has a sense of, my approach may not be perfect. There's 250 therapeutic models, right, Armando? And they all have research.
That's it?
Well, the ones that have research.
I feel like there's more.
Well, there's a lot more coming out. And a lot of them seem more like technique-ish, more than just modalities.
Yeah.
But I would say the models that I recall, I'm throwing out a number. I could be wrong. It might be more than 250. You might be right. But from what I recall, just based on the little bit of recollection I have from all the way back to the days of schooling, it seemed as if there was about 250 models that had research behind them, meaning that they've been studied, they've been around long enough. And long story short, no one's superior than another.
They all have their place. I would agree with you on that. I think they all have their place.
But we have therapists that walk around and believe that their model's superior to another. And I think it's because we've probably spent so much time with that model, we've gotten good at it.
Right.
So we're like, I know it's superior because I see it every day. We got good at it. But what I think is amazing about certain models is certain models allow you to have adaptability and allow you to co-collaborate with your clients so that you can build solutions. And other models don't do that. Other models are more investigative in nature. Mm-hmm. And so it really depends. Sometimes clients come in and they just want to be taught what it is. Yeah. Other ones come in and they want to kind of process it so they have a better understanding of what it is. And so it depends on, your client and what your client, feeds off of in the way that you approach your therapy. So there's no one way to do anything. Someone else can write another book. Mm-hmm. Same book, a second version of this book and 50 different questions, and they're probably going to be good too.
Right.
Makes sense? So, I probably could write another one and do, 50 more, 150 more, there's tons of questions. This book in particular is really designed to show you these are my go-to 50. These are the ones that I have seen in real time make a difference. And what's really cool about this book, Armando, is I have stories in them to help people see how those questions were used in real time.
Is there a particular story that like in your head that kind of pops out that like that's your favorite or your go-to or?
No, I don't have a favorite. I had all these in here I loved. They were all
one that I've only heard like maybe a handful of times.
Probably. I tell a lot of stories, don't I? I think that's where the learning.
That's just what you don't know is we also have a track of how many times we repeat stories in the office. Well, to be fair, Michael is not the only one who does it, but he does it the most, I think.
I'm notorious for repeating. Yeah.
But is there a story? I mean, we're joking, but all jokes aside, is there one that like you feel like is just?
I don't have a story. I have what I could do is just read an excerpt from chapter 6, which is goal setting.
Go for it.
And I'll tell you why I particularly picked this chapter. In any conversation you have with another person, if you don't know what the goal of that conversation is, you're going to talk in circles, and you're trying to find what the goal is. If I come up to you and start talking to you about, hey, Armando, this weekend and you're like, I don't know where Michael's going with this. Like your brain is first searching for where's Michael going. Now, if I walk in and say,
I'd check out.
I know I've seen your eyes do that. So, so when I see that happen, the first thing I say is, hey, by the way, this is what I'm trying to accomplish.
Let me tell you a story. So I was on an airplane yesterday and I moved seats because there was a seat back there and I moved back and so there was a seat open in the middle. And so I was in the aisle and this guy was on the window. And I am not listeners, I am an introvert. I can play an extrovert on TV, but I am an introvert. If I'm on an airplane and I have a book, don't talk to me. So I'm sitting there, and this man just starts talking to me, and immediately my thought goes, "What is the point of this conversation? Are we just small talking? Like, what are we doing?"
Exactly.
But
I think most of you, whether you're introvert or extrovert, extroverts just kind of just join you where you are, but introverts go, "What are we doing?"
And but to your point, right? So as you were speaking of that, I was like, "Whoa, hey, let's not call me out like that. I don't appreciate that."
Well,
to your point,
I think for most people, most conversations are accomplished cleanly when we both know what the goal of the conversation is. And so that's why I've selected this particular chapter to give you an excerpt from. And so it starts with, this chapter might be the most important. Over the years of counseling, I've learned that the lack of clarity about the goal of therapy itself can block progress. I remember early in my career sitting in the living room of my home with a juvenile adolescent and his parents. This was their home, not my home.
Right.
Yeah. Mom was sitting on the couch with her son next to the couch where I was asked to sit. I started the conversation with, what are your best hopes for our time together? Her response was, I don't know. I continued with my next question. If the problem that brought me here was resolved, how would you know? To this question, she also said, I don't know. So I tried another one. How will you know when things are better? To this question, she gave me the ultimate compliment. Her response was, how many different ways can you ask me the same, and I didn't put this word in there, I'll say it on the podcast, it's going to be a little, the same effing question.
Okay. You got to bleep stuff?
Well, that's how she actually said it. I left that little piece out.
I'll do that to her.
But how many different ways can you ask the same question? I smiled in appreciation and I replied, until you answer it, I'll continue to ask. She smiled back at me and she answered the question. Zig Ziglar had a comment here. Says, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. You have to remember that these questions hit a little differently. And sometimes you need to sit with them so that you can answer them and the answer can become clearer. It was apparent to me that this mom was having to really think about what I was asking, and she was hoping that her answer would encourage me to move on. Instead, I became more creative with the question and inviting her into clarity regarding the goal that she had for my work with her son. I never asked, but my assumption is that she was expecting me to ask what was wrong or why her concerns were. She has probably answered that question a multitude of times. I wanted something different. So that's a little excerpt of what people will experience in the book. And yeah.
Can I tell you how much I love that story? because I've been, I mean, and those of us that have done therapeutic work or that do therapy or even being in people's homes, and who hasn't been cussed at? I feel like if I ever cussed at, I'm not.
They're in their home.
Yeah, I mean, you're not in my office if I'm not doing my job. But I'm struck with sometimes those questions are hard because you're asking, you're daring them to hope. You're daring them, like, and how would somebody be who is afraid of things have been bad, things are so difficult? You're asking them to hope, which is vulnerability. We were just talking about that,
right?
And so being able to be courageous to hope, and so there's a safety net in the I don't know, right? Like there's a comfortability there because if I tell you something, then I dare to hope, and then there's a thing to change everything, right? And so that's what the question is getting at, and I think that to the whole point of your book, I think that's the thing, is being able to elicit that hope in people to change, to be vulnerable.
Well, and I knew as a therapist, I'm going to fail if I don't know where we're headed.
Right.
It's like, what's the way that Chris Iverson said it? Is like, if you got into back in the day when taxis were a thing, you remember taxi, but like
you Ubers?
Yeah. The yellow Ubers. Yeah. The yellow cab Ubers, right? So you'd get in a taxi cab, and and the way they did it in London, when we were training in England, and you would get in a cab, and the first thing it'd say is where to, gov? Governor, where to, gov? Where to, gov? They want to know where they're going. And he said, therapy's no different. If I don't know where we're going, I'm going to miss it. Like Zig Ziglar said, if I aim at nothing. So if you give me, I don't know, well, I don't know either. That's why I'm asking, right? What are we doing? And so I had to come up with a creative way to go. I need at least something that lets me know I'm hitting the mark. I'm heading that direction. And to me, a lot of therapists want to be the director, so they want to direct where we're going. Yeah. And I'm not saying I can't do that now. I think I do that a lot more my own way now because I've been doing it so long. But I will say that when I'm at my best, I'm asking. Where are we going? Where are we headed? What does that look like? It seems like this. Letting you correct me or not correct me if I got it right, and you validate it. But the idea is that I love that you like this story. I know I have no doubt you've probably asked those same questions in your own way, if not multiple times a week. Now you understand why they're the 50. Okay, they're in there. So anyway, long story short, this book could be used for people who want to ask themselves the questions. It could be used to generate a dialogue with someone else. It shows how I use them and in the reasons I use them the way I do. But it could be used for therapists that are trying to better ask questions, like they want to make their questions stronger, or elicit better information or solution-driven conversations is what I like to call it. It's solution-focused, not solution-forced. And that's very important to understand, that these questions are really designed for that. So I think that it depends on how you choose to read the book.
So when your readers are done with your book, how do you hope that they ask questions and listen? How will you know that this book was effective for them?
I think the way that I would know is they would go back and say, man, those questions not only landed with other people, but man, they made me reflect on my own life and allowed me to start really getting more clear on what I need to be doing for myself, whether that's setting a goal for my future, changing a behavior or a habit I've developed that's unhealthy for me. That's my hope, is that the book will not only help them have better conversations with other people, but really to elicit something in themselves that helps them become the best versions of themselves. I think that would be my greatest hope.
So you've got 50 questions.
Yeah.
The listeners all want to know, what's your favorite question?
Oh, great. How do you know the listeners want to know that?
I mean, I want to know. But I don't want to say I want to know.
Armando,
I don't want to. You're asking me to be vulnerable.
I want to be honest.
What are we doing?
To be honest with you, I don't have a favorite question, but there is one. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here, I wouldn't say my favorite, but I'll say one that's really lands well, and I love this question. If the reason this problem that is preventing your progress never existed, how would you be doing things differently? So if the reason this problem that is preventing your progress, so it's almost like, it's a really hard, kind of confusing. But the idea of this question is there is a problem and there's a belief you have on a problem. But if that didn't exist, how would you be different?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be doing this. I'd be doing that. I'd be doing this. And then it leads me right into go, that's where you're headed. That's the ultimate want. So to me, it's to really elicit, because like you said, people do things out of fear.
Right.
Because how do we make decisions? Fear and faith, right? So one of them is driving you. Well, most clients that are in therapy, they're being driven by fear-based, right? And so if I can ask you a question that lets me go, hey, if this thing that's scaring you didn't exist, how would you do things differently in your life? What would be the first thing you do different? I might even get more specific. I mean, there's so many different ways to ask it. And I think that's the other thing. I think a therapist reading this might look at that and go, I don't like the way he asked that question. I think I can make it better. Good. Go make it better.
It's about taking that and making it your own in a way that is as effective.
Yeah, I'm not writing a book to say I know. I'm writing a book to say I want to create movement. I want to show you the things that I have found that have been helpful. Go ahead. Break it apart. Make it better. Please make it better. Write another book. I got a better book than Michael. That's fine. Go for it, man. If it made you better and it makes it better for other people, then I did my job.
Go for it.
Go for it. Like my grandpa used to say to me, go for it, So that's awesome. But yeah, man, I think that's really it. I hope I answered your questions. And
you did. Where can people purchase One Question Away?
So One Question Away is on many platforms. You can get it at Barnes & Nobles. You can get it off Amazon. There's a hardback version. There's a softback. So you just type in One Question Away, 50 therapeutic questions to change everything in my name. Probably the easiest way to find it because that's very specific to the book title. If you type One Question Away, you're going to see, I think there's some other books that have that in it. So you might not find the right one. But my name is Michael Flores. And I am a master in professional counseling, and I have an LPC, and so it actually shows my credentials in my name on the bottom of the book. The book is orange and white, so if you want to make sure you have the right color scheme, the orange is on the top, the white is on the bottom. One Question Away is in orange with white letters, and white with orange letters is the 50 therapeutic questions change everything. I'm not sure if it's on our website yet for purchase, so you can purchase directly from the website, or it will take you to a place to purchase. But we can definitely put a link in the show notes.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Janan loves that.
She does. Look at the notes.
Yeah, I will put a link. I will ask our podcast editor to link the show notes to where you can purchase the book. And thank you so much. If you want a signed copy of the book, you can actually purchase them directly from me at our office. And I have signed copies here that I'm happy to sell to you.
Copy.
I'll give you a copy, and then you have to ask me to sign it.
You asked me vulnerable.
That's getting introvert. I will sign a copy.
No, I'm going to ask.
You're awesome. Yes, I have books for all of you guys, for sure. So thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much, and thank you for actually talking to me about the book. I was so excited to do that.
Very excited for you. This is very excited, and the questions, the intention behind it, I fully support. I love it.
Thank you.
And you can really see yourself in this book. And so it's exciting.
Oh, that's awesome. You must still like me then.
I would know if I didn't. It'd be very evident, I think.
Oh my gosh. We are just so silly. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here. We ask that you keep moving forward, everybody.